The Celestial Archive of Zortham housed the galaxy's most precious artifacts, and none more revered than the primordial egg. For 500 standard cycles, it had rested in the Hall of Eternal Slumber, a crystalline chamber maintained at precisely 273.15 Kelvin by the most advanced Zetherian technology. Scholars from 1,000 worlds had studied it. Priests had prayed over it. Warriors had bled upon its obsidian surface, offering their essence to awaken whatever ancient power slumbered within. Nothing had worked. The egg remained dormant, its surface an impenetrable shell of midnight black, veined with what appeared to be fossilized starlight. The Zorthami believed it contained the last of the void dragons, creatures of legend that had supposedly shaped the cosmos before retreating into myth. Its discovery on a dead world at the galaxy's edge had sparked a religious fervor that still burned bright among the faithful. Marcus Webb didn't care about any of that. The human janitor had been working at the archive for 3 months, one of only 5 humans employed in the entire sector. He'd taken the job because it paid well and asked few questions about his past. His shift started at 400 station time, when the halls were empty and the scholars had retreated to their quarters. He mopped floors, cleaned display cases, and tried not to think about the mining accident that had killed his crew back on Kepler 442b. On the morning everything changed, Marcus was running late. He'd overslept after spending half the night helping repair a malfunctioning life support unit in the human quarters. His supervisor, a towering Zetherian named Velcora, had been in a foul mood, assigning him the Hall of Eternal Slumber as punishment for his tardiness.
"Make it shine," Velcora had clicked in her species' harsh language.
"The High Scholar visits this afternoon." Marcus had nodded, grabbed his equipment cart, and trudged to the hall, his stomach growling. He'd skipped breakfast. The Hall of Eternal Slumber was the most peaceful place in the archive. The temperature was uncomfortable, too cold for a human in a standard jumpsuit, but the silence was absolute. The egg rested on a pedestal of carved void stone in the chamber's center, spotlit by bioluminescent crystals that cast no heat. Marcus began his work methodically, starting from the entrance and working inward. He'd learned early on that the Zetherian cleaning standards were exacting. Every surface had to be spotless, every corner dust-free. He worked for an hour before his stomach's protests became too loud to ignore. Checking his chrono, Marcus decided to risk it. 15 minutes for lunch wouldn't hurt. He pulled his small cooler from the cart and sat on the floor, his back against the pedestal, and unwrapped his meal. It wasn't much. A sandwich he'd assembled from synthesized ingredients and real vegetables he'd traded for from a Terran freighter crew. Tomatoes, lettuce, actual cheese, and pepper-crusted beef. The smell hit him immediately, rich and savory. A tiny piece of earth in the sterile confines of an alien archive. Marcus bit into the sandwich and closed his eyes, savoring the taste. For a moment, he was back in his mother's kitchen in New Houston, Sunday afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Behind him, something cracked. The sound was soft, like ice breaking on a winter pond, but in the absolute silence of the hall, it echoed like a gunshot. Marcus froze, sandwich halfway to his mouth, and slowly turned around. The egg had a crack running down its side. "Oh, hell," Marcus whispered. Another crack appeared, then another. The obsidian surface began to spiderweb with fractures, and a soft amber glow leaked from within. Marcus scrambled backward, his sandwich forgotten, as the egg trembled on its pedestal. The hatching took less than a minute. Pieces of shell fell away, and what emerged was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. The creature was small, no larger than a house cat, with scales that shifted between colors that had no names, shades that existed in spectrums human eyes shouldn't be able to perceive. Its wings were translucent membranes shot through with veins of liquid light. Its eyes, when they opened, were the deep gold of a dying star. The void dragon looked at Marcus. Then it looked at the sandwich in his hand. The creature made a sound, not quite a chirp, not quite a growl, and tilted its head. Marcus, operating on instinct honed by years of feeding stray cats at mining stations, tore off a piece of the sandwich and held it out. The dragon sniffed it delicately, then devoured it in one gulp. It made that sound again, clearly asking for more. "You've got to be kidding me," Marcus muttered, but he tore off another piece. By the time Velcora's screaming alarms brought the entire archive staff running, Marcus was sitting on the floor with an ancient cosmic entity curled in his lap, purring like a small fusion reactor and nibbling contentedly on the last of his lunch. The High Scholar, a wizened Zorthami named Keshatar, arrived to find his entire belief system both validated and utterly shattered. The void dragon existed. It had hatched. But not for prayers or sacrifices or centuries of devoted scholarship. It had hatched for a sandwich. "I don't understand," Keshatar whispered, his 4 eyes wide with shock. 500 years of ritual, of preparation, of the finest minds in the galaxy attempting to provide what the egg needed to awaken. "Maybe," Marcus said, scratching the dragon behind what he assumed were its ears. "It wasn't about what you were offering. Maybe it was about why." He looked down at the creature, which had fallen asleep against his chest. "I wasn't trying to use it or study it or worship it. I was just hungry, lonely, homesick." He smiled softly. Maybe it was too. The dragon shifted in its sleep, and the colors rippling across its scales formed patterns that the scholars would spend decades trying to interpret. But Marcus thought he understood them just fine. They looked like contentment. Within a week, the story had spread across the galaxy. The human who hatched the primordial egg with nothing but a sandwich and genuine, uncomplicated kindness. It became a legend, retold in 1,000 languages across 1,000,000 worlds. And Marcus Webb, who had wanted nothing more than to be left alone with his grief and his memories, found himself at the center of a new understanding. That sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or faith or ancient ritual. Sometimes it was just the simple act of sharing your lunch with someone who needed it. The dragon, whom Marcus eventually named Newton after his mother's old cat, never left his side. And when the Zorthami offered Marcus a fortune for his expertise in draconic awakening rituals, he simply smiled and declined. He had a job to finish. The floors wouldn't clean themselves. Besides, Newton seemed to like watching him work.